It's official, the invites are out, and Apple is set to hold their next virtual event on March 8th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the tagline for this event is peak performance. So we can probably expect some pretty cool things for this event, and maybe even some new Macs. Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and if you're just as excited for Apple's March 8th event as I am, you need to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel because it's going to be a busy month covering Apple's latest products, and I assume you don't want to miss a second of it, so make sure you turn that notification bell on as well. All right, so it's here, finally, an Apple event with new products, and I'm here to tell you what to expect, and maybe more importantly, also what not to expect at this event. So let's start with what I think is pretty much the most likely products that we can see, and I think this starts with a brand new iPhone SE. Now, this is going to be a very simple update to the current iPhone SE, with most rumors stating it will just receive the same A15 chip that is currently in the flagship iPhone 13, and it will receive 5G cellular networking and be Apple's cheapest entry point into getting an iPhone with 5G network capabilities, and the starting price is going to be the same at $400, the same price as the current iPhone SE. And that's about it. Almost everything else for the iPhone SE 3rd generation will be the same. So the same exact design with those bigger bezels and a Touch ID home button, the same 4.7-inch LCD display, and the same overall form factor. I think maybe there's a chance this iPhone SE can get some camera improvements, but that would all be done through software and through the A15 chip. So it's possible we could see things like Smart HDR4, maybe photographic styles, or possibly even cinematic video. Those could make their way to the iPhone SE through just software features, but in terms of like new physical camera hardware, we're not expecting anything here as well. Now, I think one of the more interesting last-minute rumors is actually what might happen to the current iPhone SE, which comes with the A13 chip and would still just be on the LTE cellular network. However, there are some last-minute rumors that Apple may keep this phone in the lineup and give it a steep discount, with Mark Gurman from Bloomberg saying it may hit a $200 price point. Honestly, I have no idea if this will turn out to be true, but if it is, it would probably be the lowest cost iPhone ever without a carrier subsidy, and I think it would make sense if Apple plans to finally discontinue the iPod Touch in the lineup, which still retails for $199, and just have an iPhone that can fulfill that role. But if this iPhone SE $200 model turns out to be true, I think it could potentially be a pretty big deal, and in a way, kind of more exciting than just getting a little spec bump to the existing iPhone SE and retailing it for $400. The idea of just a $200 iPhone is kind of just a shock, even if it's not necessarily the best phone on the market, that I kind of want to see what that looks like if Apple actually decides to release it, and if it can compete in the low end against some pretty compelling Android phone options. Okay, another update we should expect to see at this Apple Spring event is just another spec bump, but it's an important one for the iPad Air. Right now, the iPad Air is in a really awkward spot in the iPad lineup. It is more expensive than the iPad mini and comes with a weaker A14 chip and can't be configured with 5G cellular like the mini can. And it lacks the center stage camera feature that is literally on every other iPad in the lineup, including the cheapest $329 iPad. So this iPad Air needs those fundamental updates for its hefty $600 price tag, and that's probably what we will end up seeing: an upgrade with an A15 chip, the addition of 5G cellular as an additional model, and the upgraded center stage front-facing camera. Now, while those are the most likely updates, I also hope Apple goes one step further with this device and adds a 120Hz ProMotion display, especially considering the next 11-inch iPad Pro is slated to receive a mini LED display. I'd also love to see Apple up the starting storage in this device from 64GB to 128GB, bringing it in line with the starting storage for the iPhone 13 models and making the iPad Air a better value at its $600 price point. Don't forget, the $329 iPad also comes with 64GB of starting storage, so I think Apple needs to add more to this iPad Air to actually make it stand out and just be an option that you'd actually want to consider in this iPad lineup. Another thing Apple could do to kind of shake this up a little bit for the iPad Air is just maybe introduce some new colors, give it some fresh paint, hopefully more saturated colors than what we currently have on the iPad Air lineup. I would just love to see the back of those iPads just be a little bit more vibrant. Now there's other smaller things we can expect out of this event, like a refresh to some of Apple's cases. There's actually been quite a few leaks already showing the new Apple case lineup for colors, and that would include other additional watch bands as well. Apple usually refreshes that in the spring, so expect smaller updates like that as well. All right, now while I think the iPhone SE and iPad Air are the most likely hardware updates we can expect, I don't think that will be all, with Apple rumored to be getting ready to announce even more new Macs. The only question at this point is, what kind of Macs will we see at this event? Because there are some last-minute rumblings that could have this event looking like either one new Mac or maybe a whole slew of new Macs, even with a new Apple Silicon chip. I think the most likely Mac that we will get at this event is an update to the Space Gray Intel Mac Mini. This could even go as far as a slight redesign with a flatter design and a new plexiglass top with a two-tone color finish. And while an updated design would be nice, what really matters is what's on the inside of this machine, and that's where I get excited, because the new Mac Mini, or Mac Mini Pro as I think it will be called, is rumored to get the same M1 Pro and M1 Max chips that were just released on the powerful 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros. These chips would be gigantic upgrades, especially for that Intel version, which would have these chips beating it easily in CPU performance, and it would be the biggest boost in graphics capabilities to the Mac Mini ever. Of course, it should also be able to be spec'd up with up to 64 gigabytes of memory and up to 8 terabytes of internal storage. Another thing to look forward to would be an increased port selection, which should have more options than the current M1 Mac Mini, with possibly 3 to 4 Thunderbolt USB-C ports, maybe USB-A ports, HDMI, Ethernet, and possibly an SD card slot. I think this Mac Mini would be priced around $1,300 for 512 gigabytes of storage and 16 gigabytes of starting memory, and it could represent the best valued Mac desktop for professionals that could even replace a Mac Pro for some users. Don't forget, in some of these tasks, the M1 Max chip is faster than some of the higher-end spec versions of the Intel Mac Pro, which starts at $6,000. So I think this is going to actually be a really cool little desktop machine, and probably going to be a high recommendation if a lot of these rumors turn out to be true. Okay, what about some of the other Macs that could be at this event, and ones that I'm kind of less confident about, if I'm to be honest with you? Well, that would have to mainly deal around a couple of rumors saying that Apple will announce a new entry-level MacBook Pro at this event, complete with our first look at next-generation Apple Silicon with the M2 chip. Now, this isn't exactly out of the realm of possibility. The M1 chip, I might remind you, is more than 1 year old at this point. And just how the M1 chip was based off the A14 design, the M2 chip will be based off of the A15 design. So the fact that Apple has this chip ready, to me, is not surprising. What is surprising is if this turns out to be true, the rumors are saying that the only change to this MacBook Pro would just be a new M2 chip. That's it, just a more powerful M2 chip. This means it would have the same exact 13-inch LCD display, the same exact form factor with bigger bezels, just 2 Thunderbolt ports, and even retain the touch bar. And Apple keeping the touch bar on this product would be the hardest thing for me to believe at this point, because they just got rid of it on their new MacBook Pros. It also isn't that exciting of a product to showcase their new M2 chip. But considering the rumored redesign of the M2 MacBook Air won't be ready until possibly the end of this year, perhaps it does make sense for Apple just to release spec bumps of their older M1 Macs until that is ready, rather than selling computers that are actually above the average release day release cycle, according to Mac rumors. That was a tongue twister. I don't know if I said that right. And the only other thing to consider is, if this MacBook Pro can get a spec bump with the same design, why not spec bump every other M1 Mac too, if it's really just a chip swap? The M1 Mac Mini, the M1 iMac, and even the M1 MacBook Air, without the redesign, could receive the same M2 chip. So if the M2 MacBook Pro is actually going to be at this event, I honestly wouldn't be too surprised if we saw some of those other Macs receiving the M2 chip as well, either at this event or just sometime shortly after this event. But all right, that is pretty much everything I think we can expect at Apple's March event. Again, that will be live streamed at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on March 8th. So let me know, what products do you think we will actually see at this event, and which one are you most excited to see? And as always, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you get subscribed to the channel because there's going to be a lot of content soon covering that event. And I will see you all, hopefully, in the next video. Take care, everyone.